Hi, my name is Robert Cook. I'm a student at JTech, and this is the first video we're going to use for engine mechanical testing. What we're going to be doing is some vacuum testing on our study vehicles. We will be using multiple vehicles. We're doing multiple tests. So let's get started. We're going to be performing 4 types of tests today. One is the engine absolute manifold pressure test, both vacuum and with boost. Perform our cylinder power balance tests, our cylinder cranking and running compression tests, and our cylinder leakage tests. We're going to determine with each what action needs to be taken and whether or not we need to move on to further action in testing. We also want to make sure that we have our toolbox and any other necessary materials that we may need to perform our tests nearby before starting. One of the first things we will need to do is make sure that our exhaust vacuum is attached to the muffler of our vehicle to make sure that we don't get exhaust fumes throughout the work area. We're operating safe while the car is running, because it will be running during some of our tests. One of the first things we're going to need for our engine absolute manifold pressure test is our vacuum gauge. And to locate a good vacuum port, we've located one right here. We're going to go ahead and disconnect that here. And we're going to connect our vacuum tester to that vacuum port. Right there. When performing our vacuum test, these are some of our readings that we may get and what it indicates. Okay, we've gone ahead and started our vehicle to check our vacuum on it. And we're currently reading at about 12 to 13, which is below our normal readings. So we're going to go ahead and advance on to our next test. Okay, now on to our next test. We've got our vacuum gauge operating properly. What we're going to do is what's called a snap test. We're going to snap the throttle really good and fast and watch that vacuum gauge rise. And the second thing we're going to do is we're going to bring our RPMs up to about 2600 and see what the gauge does. Okay, so first one's our snap test. As expected, we lost all vacuum on that one, and now it's come back down to normal. Now we're going to run it at a steady 2600 RPMs. That's right within our normal range we're expecting. All right, the next thing we're setting up for a running compression test, and then we're going to go ahead and perform it. I've pre-staged some of the components for the expediency of the video. We're going to remove our spark plug wire here, and we're going to ground it so that the spark does not arc. We used a spark plug grounder item here. And we're going to place that on an unpainted piece of metal to ensure that it stays grounded. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to get that spark plug out of there, which we've also pre-staged removing. This is for demonstration purposes only. Okay, we're going to go ahead and remove the spark plug out of the engine block there and place that in a safe one. If we were doing this with more than one cylinder, we would always mark which compartment and cylinder it came. Whenever we remove a spark plug, we go ahead and blow out the cylinder slot for it to make sure that no debris is in there for when we restart. Next, we're going to get a hose specifically designed to go into the spark plug area with a one-way valve to attach our gauge to. For demonstration purposes, we have already installed that at this time. This is a close-up of our gauge and how we hook up our gauge to our hose. Now that we have our vehicle running and the entire test is set up for it, we're going to go ahead and clear out our gauge of any pressure. We're going to allow it to do its work so it can show us exactly how much we got. What we're going to do now is the cranking compression test. Part of that test is we need to go ahead and remove all the coils and remove our spark plugs, which we have done ahead of time for our video, and make sure that our gauge has been cleared and is ready for our cranking test. During that last test, our helper was allowing us to crank 5 times to allow the cylinders to create air compression inside of the block. Next thing we're going to do here is a cylinder leakage test. Make sure that we have all of our plugs out and our coils out. We have a line set directly into our cylinder. The reason we do this test is to make sure that if we have any leakage from the cylinder out into the other areas, whether it be intake, exhaust, or into the block itself, using high pressure air while the piston is at top dead center in the cylinder. Okay. Once we have the gauge installed, we add additional pressure of air into the cylinder, checking for any leaks that may be coming across. It is normal to have around 20% efficiency through that leak. Any more than that, start checking in different areas, listening for where the leak may be coming. Okay, now after we performed our absolute manifold pressure tests, both our vacuum and with a boost, we've decided that we need to move on to our cylinder power balance test. For this one, we're going to use a scan tool. We've already set up our information for the Toyota, and we're going to control the select cylinder fuel cut so that we can cut off the fuel for each cylinder individually. We're going to collect all of our data, and we're going to go down so we can read our RPMs when we cut off each cylinder. Okay, you can see there we go. Speed of each cylinder, and now we can see our engine speed at RPMs. You see right now it's above 700, which our factory spec is between 600 and 700, so anything over 700 is out of spec. We're going to turn off number 1, and it actually goes down, so that comes back on automatically. And turn off number 2, again begins to sputter. Give that a few seconds, go back to normal, actually a little high, but within normal, and then back to high. So we're going to turn off number 3. Also lowers our RPMs and then raises them back up as we go back to all 4 cylinders firing. And we turn off number 4. And we're actually down close on the other side. So number 4 is our culprit.